Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. Welcome to the first part of my playthrough of Black Ops 2. I hope you guys like my cosplay for the Angola mission. If you're new to this channel, I do dress up as the characters, and I will have a bunch of different outfits for this playthrough. But anyways, this is the sequel to Black Ops 1, which we actually played earlier this year, and Black Ops 7 is coming out, next week, and I want to complete this story, so we might have like 2 parts out a day. I want to complete this story before Black Ops 7 comes out, and for Black Ops 7, I'm mostly looking forward to the story because I want to see how David Mason's story ends. I don't really care about the multiplayer. I'm more of a story guy. But anyways, I played this game when it first came out. I beat it. And I know campaign is very different than a lot of the other campaigns because there's so many choices that you can make which can shape, different things that happen in the game, as well as, multiple endings that you can have. So I hope you guys enjoy this series. If you do like these videos, please do drop a like. It does help me to make more content like this, but I'm going to take you guys on a big nostalgia trip with this game. And also, if you're wondering, yes, the History series is coming back. So when I'm going to be playing through this, when we do the Cold War missions, the modern day missions, I'm not really going to say much history, but the Cold War missions, when they go back in time, I will talk a lot of history on that. I'll basically explain what's going on and, and talk about the characters and the events and what was going on at that time. Because a lot of these events are based on real events that you see in the game, especially the Angola Civil War, which I'll talk about the Angola Civil War on this part. But anyways, let's do it. New story. We're gonna do on Hardened. I like Hardened because Hardened is always like a challenge, but it's not like impossible like Veteran. Veteran's just annoying.
Secure the building.
This game takes place in 2025, the same year that's right now.
Scout every inch of the vault, sir. Except this room.
Safety's on, dipshit. Hey, old man. Was Raul Menendez here today?
Sergeant Woods. Raul Menendez is the leader of Cortes Dia, and the most dangerous terrorist since Osama bin Laden. Fucking waste of time. Guy's a vegetable.
Back off!
All he said was, mi hermana.
That means my sister.
That's Spanish for sister, dipshit. You boys better get your shit together. He's gonna attack.
If you have information about a threat to national security, you gotta tell us.
Turn the camera on. Your old man. He's doing okay in Alaska. Fucking Hudson showed up.
Dad, I'm scared. I need help.
You're 7 years old, David. Stop acting like a baby.
I hate you.
David, wait!
Mason is from Alaska, by the way.
Go back to the army, like you did when Mom died.
Lieutenant Colonel North, NSC. You already know Jason Hudson.
What are you doing here?
Yesterday, Sergeant Woods led a covert team to take out an arms smuggling ring in Angola. This morning, we lost contact.
So go get him, CIA. Why are you here?
Castro and the Russians are all over Angola. We can't go in. The CIA have buried the mission. Woods and his squad no longer exist.
We got whatever you need, Mason. Name it.
David can stay with Jenny, like before. She loves having him. He'll be fine.
Dad, you said you'd never go back to the army. You promised me.
It's Uncle Woods, son. It'd do it for me.
Okay, one will appear prior to each mission, identifying the key objective. You can also customize your loadout. Yeah, that's what I like about this here. Okay. So, yeah, we can customize our loadout here. Okay, AK-47, secondary. That's one thing I really liked about this game, is that you can actually choose your loadout before you, you start each mission. Okay, Angola, 1986. This is the Angolan Civil War. Let's do it.
They found where I was being held prisoner with a spy satellite. One of them KH-9s. This baby, it shits out a film canister 12 miles up. Then a C-130 comes by, snags it at about 30,000 feet. This was not the digital age. This film had to be processed, analyzed, and delivered, all by hand. Our dog in the fight is a guy named Jonas Savimbi. You think I'm fucking nuts? This guy.
No! I need help over here! Hold on! Mason! Savimbi, you gotta help! Right! Damn it! The fire finished him. Sometimes it's too late to save a man. We must move out before we join them in death. The water fire means the MPLA is ready for attack. They will not fight! We give them a fight! Move out!
Mason, you copy?
Go ahead, Hudson!
MPLA forces advancing on your position about 1 click north.
Hey, we know! Savimbi's leading a countercharge!
He's got balls, I'll give him that.
What about Woods? Do we have confirmation on his location?
They've been moving him from one location to another. We expect Savimbi's men to report back soon.
Okay, so basically, let me talk about what's going on here exactly. This is the Angolan Civil War. Now, a lot of people don't know that much about this conflict. This is actually one of the final conflicts between the Soviet Union and the US. And the crazy thing about the Angolan Civil War is the Angolan Civil War is basically a proxy war inside a proxy war, if that makes sense. So basically, Angola was a colony of Portugal. Portugal was a military fascist dictatorship in the 60s up until the mid-1970s. After World War II, a lot of European countries like France and Britain agreed to decolonize and let their colonies go free. Portugal was not one of those countries. Portugal fought to keep their colonies, and Portugal argued that, oh, they're not colonies, they're part of our country. But they weren't, that you can't make that argument, because Portugal treated their colonial people like crap. You know, the Angolans, for example, were not given Portuguese citizenship, and the Portuguese just basically would steal their resources and just plunder their country. And so the Angolans basically wanted them out of the country, and they waged a war against them, the Angolan War of Independence. Now, what ended up happening is in the Angolan War of Independence, there was 3 factions. There was the MPLA, which was the communist faction. There was the UNITA, which is Savimbi's faction, which were nationalists that wanted a republican government. You had FNLA, which were also another group of nationalists. The UNITA originally broke away from them, and but they were more the northern faction, where UNITA was more the central. But anyways, these 3 factions had fought against the Portuguese. Nobody liked the Portuguese, so everybody basically wanted them out of the country. The UNITA fought mainly against MPLA, but they did also do some attacks against the Portuguese. And what happened was there was a coup in Portugal in the 1970s, and that dictatorship was basically removed from power. Portugal was spending half of its money on the war. It was very unpopular at home. Portugal leaves in 1975, and then the country goes into full-scale civil war between the 3 factions. And what ends up happening is the 2 factions that are remaining are mainly the MPLA MPLA, the communists, and then, UNITA, the Republicans that, that were more nationalistic. And that's Savimbi's faction right here. These guys are UNITA that Mason is with right now. Now, what happened is during this war, the MPLA were the ones who had pretty much conquered most of Angola in 1975, and South Africa actually ended up invading from Namibia. Now, South Africa controlled Namibia at this time. When South Africa invaded Namibia, what happened was Cuba actually sent 50,000 soldiers. So Cuba actually invaded, which you'll see Cuba later on in the game. And then it was battles between, UNITA, MPLA, Cuba, and South Africa. The U.S. did not, intervene that much in this. The CIA did support UNITA, but one of the reasons the U.S. did not support, get involved in this war that much was because South Africa was a white supremacist state, and nobody liked South Africa. It was a widely condemned state. They just didn't want a communist state north of them. That's why they invaded. And so that's largely why the United States stayed out of, Angola. There was even a law that was passed where the U.S. did not, fund any money to Angola. I'll have the law down below. I forgot what it was called, but that's basically the backstory on it. And how did the war end? Eventually, the MPLA, they did win. And in 1992, all the sides agreed to an election. There was disputes over, if the election was real or not. And then, 10 years later, the MPLA fully won the war in 2002. So the war ended all the way. It went up until 2002, where the MPLA fully won and took over the country. So about Savimbi, Savimbi was a real person. He's not just a made-up person for this game. He was actually the leader of UNITA during the Angolan Civil War. Now, about Savimbi, Savimbi was a very intelligent man. This was a guy that had a very high IQ. He actually spoke 6 to 7 languages. He spoke Portuguese, French, English. He spoke Ovim Bundu, if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. That's the language of Angola. He spoke Chokwe, and he also spoke Mandarin Chinese. So this was a very intelligent man. He studied also in Switzerland. I speak English and Polish, and I'm struggling to learn Spanish, so it's crazy that this guy managed to speak so many languages. But anyways, about him is he studied in Switzerland, but he also learned warfare tactics in China, where he studied. He studied Maoist, that's where the communist Chinese. He studied, tactics from them on how to wage a guerrilla war, a war of rebellion. Now, when he came to Angola, his home country, he ended up forming UNITA. And UNITA originally was a Maoist, communist group, which Maoism, it's the communist ideology. But eventually, he abandoned that ideology, and instead, he went towards supporting more of a Republican, democratic form of government in Angola. He was more of a nationalist figure, and he had fought for his country. He fought to kick the MPLA out. He said that he wanted free markets in Angola. He wanted Angola to be a free country. Now, about Savimbi, Savimbi was a master of guerrilla warfare. This guy, you could not beat him in guerrilla warfare. He knew the terrain so well. He fought in central Angola primarily. He would launch hit-and-run tactics against the MPLA, and the thing about him is Savimbi was always right there with his soldiers. He wasn't like commanding from, very far away. So what you see in Black Ops 2, this is fairly accurate. That's why he was such a popular figure. He was always with his soldiers. Now, what ended up happening to Savimbi is that in 1988, as part of the tripartite accord, Cuba and South Africa agreed to withdraw from Angola. What happened at that point is there was elections in 1992. UNITA ended up winning 40% of the vote. MPLA won 49% of the vote, and it was going to a runoff vote. Savimbi had claimed that these elections were rigged, and he had claimed that the communists were rigging the elections. The United Nations claimed that the elections were fair, but I actually agree more with Savimbi on this. I think the elections were rigged because you can't trust communists to do a fair election. Wherever there was communist countries, they would always rig elections. Always. Communists have a history of rigging elections, so you can't really blame Savimbi for contesting the results and claiming that the election results weren't fair. But anyway, Savimbi, what he did was he withdrew from the government, and he formed his, his guerrilla group again, his guerrilla rebellion group. Now, the MPLA, what they did is they went into Luanda, the capital of Angola, and they launched the Luanda massacre. And what they did in the Luanda massacre is they killed over 30,000 UNITA members. They just went door to door, dragging UNITA, supporters from their homes, just massacring them, killing them. And this was the excuse the communists wanted. They wanted an excuse to basically purge all the UNITA supporters. Now, Savimbi, what he did was he launched a guerrilla war against the communists in Angola for the next 10 years, and he was actually killed all in 2002 in a shootout. And at that point, when he was killed in 2002, UNITA gave up. And they gave up, and they agreed to merge with the government, and they became a political party. And the reason they gave up was because their leader, who they had put so much faith in, was dead. It basically broke their morale, and they surrendered, and they agreed to form a coalition government with MPLA. But the MPLA still exists in Angola, and so does the UNITA. But the MPLA have always had majority power. UNITA, I think, has like 40% of the seats, but they've never gotten over 50%. And it's highly suspected that the elections in Angola are rigged today. Angola is not a complete democracy today. It's not a full-on communist country. It's more of a socialist market country controlled by the MPLA, but it's very much still not a democracy. But it's really sad what happened to Savimbi is Savimbi had fought for his country. He wanted to free Angola, and he probably would have been a good president. The MPLA made all this propaganda against him, saying that he was, practiced witchcraft, but I saw no, evidence for that. This is a very intelligent man. This isn't somebody that would do witchcraft. And so I think that was just propaganda the communists created just to slander him and make him look like a savage. But that was it, he wanted to fight for a free and independent Angola. He fought his entire life for it, and ultimately, he ended up dying for his country. The other thing I wanted to talk about the Angolan Civil War is something else that you guys don't know about, and this is what's crazy, is that Chevron, the American gasoline company, was actually working with the MPLA. They were actually making money working with the MPLA. So before they became Chevron, they were Gulf Oil, and Gulf Oil later merged with Chevron. Now, Gulf Oil, they were the largest oil exporter in Angola. Angola has actually a lot of oil, especially in the coasts. And Gulf Oil were the ones, the American gas company, were the ones who were primarily drilling that stuff. Now, the MPLA had pretty much taken over the coast and had occupied most of the country, and nobody wanted to trade with the MPLA. Most of the Western countries did not want to trade with them, and the Soviet Union wasn't interested in buying their gasoline either, because the Soviet Union had plenty of gasoline, and because the MPLA was supported by the Soviets, the Chinese didn't want to do business with them either, because the Chinese hated the Soviets, and so the MPLA wanted money to basically fund their war machine in the Angolan Civil War, and so what the MPLA did was, they actually did business with this American gasoline company. So the communists in Angola let this American gasoline company operate, and they were basically exporting oil to the rest of the world, and they were taking a cut of it. So the Gulf, which became Chevron, would drill the oil in Angola, and then they would basically export it to the West, sell it, and then they would give a cut to the MPLA. And the MPLA was making money working with an American gas company. And so MPLA and Cuban soldiers in Angola, communists, were protecting an American gasoline company's oil field. How ironic is that? This is something the communists won't tell you. They'll basically bury this. They'll hide this story. And then UNITA was pissed. UNITA, the faction that the United States was supporting, they were pissed, and they were attacking Chevron oil fields, and Cuban and MPLA soldiers were defending an American gas company. Unfortunately, the United States never did anything to punish Chevron for this, and the U.S. should have done something about this. The U.S. should have actively punished Chevron for this and said, you can't do something like this. And UNITA accused the United States of betraying them, and we betrayed our allies. We did, because this American gasoline company, we were funding both sides. We were funding UNITA, which were fighting for the freedom and independence of their country against the communist MPLA, and meanwhile you had Chevron, an American gasoline company that was funding the communists. And so UNITA funded themselves primarily through diamond mines that were inland, but once MPLA took that over, they didn't have enough money to fund themselves. And so ironically, the communists won because they had more money. And so I think it's disgusting that we really abandoned our allies. We abandoned UNITA, and this American, gasoline company basically helped the communists take over and destroy Angola.
The motors have stopped.
You know what that means? A charge, yeah.
Here they come. Here they come, my brothers. Fight, my brothers.
You see, this is why Savimbi was such a effective military commander, because he was always with his men, which they got such high morale being next to him. He wasn't afraid of battle.
Mason, target the motor crews. They're behind the rocks.
Mortar crews are down. Damn it, Hudson. They got T-62 tanks in support. We need you to take the heat off. Take out the tanks, Hudson! Beginning strafing run.
later, one of them is gonna get lucky.
Nice work, Hudson. There's a couple of MG trucks targeting you.
I can't make another pass till you take out those MG trucks.
I'm doing them.
Oh crap. Okay.
MG trucks are down. You clear, Hudson?
Okay, coming around again.
There's heavy armor still out there.
Shit, Mason. Straight fire took out the chopper gun. I can't make another run.
Go, my friend! Climb aboard, Mason!
I'll meet up. Okay.
Mason, get on the bumbo!
This is gonna be good now.
They are weak! We must finish them! Our journey to victory has begun! Death to the MPLA! My friend from above! You killed many men today, huh? Yes! We all did!
Where's Woods?
The MPLA is not yet defeated. That's a very dangerous rescue, my friend.
Where is he?
He's being held captive by a Nicaraguan gun runner. A very dangerous man.
Where?
About 2 miles north. He's on a transport barge on the Cubango River. He may already be dead.
Let's go, Hudson!
It's honestly a shame that UNITA did not win this civil war. Angola would have been a much better place. The communists had destroyed that country so badly.
I was MIA and but your old man thought I was dead. After all that shit Kravchenko did to him. The numbers, Reznov being stuck in his head. He had no idea it was real. How the fuck could he? Kravchenko, when I sliced that bastard open, he saved everyone's ass. But he comes to first. Boom. Welcome to the Hanoi Hilton. 6 months later, they shipped me over to Da Nang. And this fucking place made the Hilton look good. Lost 17 of my group. By 72, it was just me. I was not gonna die in a fucking swamp!
Okay, so about the prison that Woods was actually held in North Vietnam, this was actually a real-life prison, and this prison was called the Hoa Lo prison in Vietnam. Now, the Hoa Lo prison, this was a prison that was originally built by the French colonial authorities, so when Vietnam was a colony of France, France built this giant colonial prison, and the French were very brutal towards Vietnamese freedom fighters that they had imprisoned in there, and they had tortured and killed a lot of Vietnamese freedom fighters in that prison. Now, when North Vietnam became independent from France and the communists had taken over, they actually converted the prison into their own prison for political opponents, and also especially for American POWs and South Vietnamese POWs that were captured during the war. Now, most of the POWs inside Hanoi Hilton were American pilots, but some of them were also American soldiers that were actually captured in Laos. Now, about this prison, the prison was actually called the Hanoi Hilton by Americans. That was the joke that Americans had used. And you can also see it as a multiplayer map in Call of Duty Black Ops 1. It's there. Now, about this prison had some of the worst torture and worst, conditions ever. Prisoners were starved, tortured, beaten routinely. It was just a nightmare. And to this day, we really don't know the exact amount of American prisoners that actually died in that prison, and Vietnam definitely is not going to release that records. And the prison today, it's actually a museum, and in Vietnam, the museum is dedicated mostly towards the Vietnamese freedom fighters that were actually tortured in the prison and killed. There's very little mention of the American prisoners that were in that prison, and when they do mention the American prisoners, they claim that, it's, they were treated humanely, they were treated fairly, we followed the Geneva Convention, all this other stuff. They basically lied about the whole thing. There was actually an American prisoner named Jeremiah Denton, who was an American pilot shot down and captured over North Vietnam. When he was actually given an interview by a Japanese journalist inside the Hanoi Hilton, he claimed he was being treated fairly, but he was actually blinking Morse code for torture.
I get adequate food and adequate clothing and medical care when I require it.
So that's how torture was exposed at the Hanoi Hilton. And then Americans who were later released in 1973 from the prison admitted to torturous conditions there. But that was basically the first admittance of torture. He was basically saying what the North Vietnamese wanted him to say, and he was blinking Morse code for torture. And there's a lot of really stupid people out there that say, they say things like, it was their fault, the Americans should not have been in North Vietnam. But that's not the point here. The point isn't whether America should have been in the Vietnam War. You can be completely against the Vietnam War, but if you support torture, you're a piece of crap. Nobody deserves to get tortured. North Vietnam claimed that they had supported the Geneva Convention, and they were following the Geneva Convention. And you can't follow the Geneva Convention, you can't torture prisoners. That's a clear violation of their human rights. You can't do stuff like that. But North Vietnam did stuff like that, and today Vietnam, they largely ignore and cover up the atrocities that they did there against American and South Vietnamese prisoners.
Coming on the convoy now!
The boys matches Smithy's intel! Wood should be inside! Bring us alongside, Hudson!
Damn it! Taking fire! Shit! We're going down! Just hasten!
Clear the decks! Tengo inimigo! Olhos no alto! Deck's clear! They're coming alongside! Keep fire on them! Don't let them get aboard! They're mounted MGs on each side of the barge!
What do we got here?
They're boarding us! We've got MPLA on board! They're all over the deck!
locks to the gunboats.
Okay, Mason, we're clear. Open up the container. Give me a hand with this, Mason.
God. Woods, are you in there, brother? Bodies are badly decomposed. These men have been dead for weeks.
Can't imagine the smell in here. This would be...
Frank? Frank! It's me. It's me, Mason. What did they do to him, Hudson?
Shit! We got Hyde right on us!
Get Woods to cover! Come on, Woods!
That arms crate is a gold mine! Grab the TGM! Take it down! Blow it out of the sky, Mason!
Damn. Still going.
Woods is going under, Mason!
I'll get him!
We've probably attracted the attention of every MPLA foot soldier in the area.
I hate that they changed Hudson's voice actor in this game. I hated that. Ed Harris should have stayed as Hudson. He was perfect in Black Ops 1 as Hudson.
Come on, Woods, I've got you. I got you, brother. Village ahead. The antenna means they've got a radio. We can call Savimbi for emergency extraction. Hold! Take cover behind that log. What the hell are Cubans doing here? They're just kids.
O que estão fazendo, idiota? Volta ao seu lugar. Soldados inimigos foram vistos na área. Você, que maneira é essa de segurar seu fuzil? Você se chama de soldado? Volta ao seu lugar. Continua chorando por sua mãe? Você quer ser criança ou quer ser homem? Mexe-se! Procura a área toda por eles!
Let's move.
Okay, so about this, the Cubans did invade Angola. A lot of people don't know this. When you think of Cuba, you don't really think of any country that they've invaded, but they have. They've invaded Angola. Now, Cuba invaded Angola in 1975 after the MPLA had pretty much, conquered Angola in 1975 after the Portuguese left, and they had resumed fighting against UNITA. Now, at that point, South Africa invaded through Namibia, which they controlled, and South Africa sent, close to 10,000 troops into Angola. And what happened was Angola was reaching out to a lot of communist countries, and Castro in Cuba agreed to send troops. And this was the largest overseas operation of any non-superpower country in the Cold War. It was Cuba sent 50,000 troops and over 1,000 tanks into Angola. So this was not a small force; it was a very, very large force, and they had fought against the South Africans. And the United States was put in a very difficult position because they didn't want the communists to take over in Angola, but they didn't want to support South Africa either because South Africa was a white supremacist, apartheid fascist state at the time, and it would have looked really bad for the Americans, and the Soviets would have just used that as propaganda, and it would have been a propaganda nightmare that they basically would have used against the U.S. And so the U.S. supported mainly UNITA in that war. But the reason that Castro was helping the MPLA was because Castro believed that Africa was the perfect place for communism to spread, and he thought that he could basically spread it to a lot of different African countries there. Now, what ended up happening was in 1988, as part of the Tripartite Accords, also known as the New York Accords, the United States and the Soviet Union were, witnesses to that, and it was signed between South Africa, Cuba, and and also the Angolans and the MPLA, and the South Africans and the Cubans agreed to withdraw from Angola, and then the Civil War had resumed. Now, what ended up happening was in 1992, the war pretty much ended, and there was elections, and the MPLA had won the elections. Some people claimed that it was rigged, but the MPLA abandoned communism after just 1 year. They abandoned communism, and instead they made their country into more of a socialist market economy. And so it's kind of ironic that Cuba had fought for over 10 years in Angola for them, actually close to 15 years for them to be a communist country, and then Angola just abandons communism after 1 year. The communists themselves realized that it didn't work. So that's basically the backstory on it, and Cuba wasn't too happy when that happened.
Stay low. Keep your head down. Don't move. Let them pass. Okay, on my lead, we run for the wooden hut. Now. Don't move. More patrols passing by. On my go, we head for the grass. Stay close.
Can someone in the comments translate what the Cuban soldiers are saying? I would really appreciate that.
Hold position. They're right in front of us. Okay, we're clear. Move out of the grass. You'll be okay, Frank. I'm gonna radio for help.
I'll take care of Woods. Watch yourself up there. Try not to draw any more attention.
Oh, look at this. Dragunov, nice. These bear traps are actually going to be very, very helpful for later on. gotta remember where I put them down. That's the Cuban flag right there. Treyarch did do their research by having the Cuban army here, but they should have also shown the South African army here. In this level.
Mullah Rahman. Do not concern yourself with local politics. Prosta marionetka. Как ты. Делай. Как сказано.
You're a dead man unless you do exactly as I say. Tune the radio to...
You're going to kill me, see?
No one move or this fucker gets it!
El americano le está diciendo que no se mueva.
Shut up!
Él piensa que está en control, pero él no
I
es.
said shut up! Lower your weapon! I swear to God, I'll kill this bastard!
Los americanos no saben nada sobre la lealtad. Quizás nosotros deberíamos demostrar.
You son of a bitch! Hudson, we're moving! Get to the beach!
Did you secure evac?
Negative, we're on our own! Head for the river!
Put some of these traps down.
Sounds like half the villages.
And also, the Cuban soldiers that were in Angola, a lot of the commanders were veterans of the Cuban Revolution. The Cuban army actually did very well in Angola, and they actually won several battles against the South African army.
Use the poacher's platform to snipe. Get up high. Provide cover fire.
Poacher's platform where?
We gotta get moving, Hudson! Throw smoke!
Smoke out.
Grab Woods!
I got him. Let's go.
Those RPGs. Oh, here we go. Poacher's Tower.
We gotta make another stand.
Get Woods in cover!
Bring some animal traps.
They're still coming! Ah! Keep firing them!
Damn, those RPGs.
They're still coming! Ah! Keep firing, Hudson! We gotta make a run for the river!
Throwing smoke.
Go! Now!
Come on, Woods. We're getting out. I got you, brother.
Keep moving!
Woods is under fire. Help him, Mason.
Damn it! MG truck on
I'll
the
deal with
waterfall.
it! Get Woods in cover!
Incoming orders. There's too many of them.
Damn, I'm getting torn up.
They're closing fast! Keep moving!
Fall back to the river? Okay.
We can't stay here! We have to move! We're getting it! No. Fucking Russians. Damn it. No way out. What the? You thought I would leave you? Huh? Ready? Come! Well, we got him, Mason.
Can't kill me. You can't kill me. Next to your old man. Put it on the line for me. For honor, friendship. Yeah. It's just like you, kid.
And about, Savimbi. Savimbi's family actually sued, Treyarch and Activision over his portrayal in this game, saying that they portrayed him as a savage, but Savimbi was actually portrayed very heroic. I don't know why anybody would be pissed that their family member was portrayed in this. He was portrayed as like a badass in this game. But yeah, that's the story about Savimbi. It's really sad that he was never able to, you know, fully liberate his country, and he ended up, you know, he fought all the way up until 2002 against the communists, and he ended up getting killed by the MPLA in a shootout then. But that is pretty much it for this part, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I will have the next mission for you guys as soon as I can. Thank you guys for watching. Take care, everyone, and have a wonderful day, guys.